Welcome everyone to Tech Tuesday. Kevin Hunter with Harry Brelsford, and we have a special guest with us today, Mike Semel, to talk about a disaster checklist. And you know, it's the interesting thing, Harry, a lot of tech people think just simply tech. Do they think about all these things that are on this checklist?
No, that's why I liked it. Mike, thank you for creating this list and sharing it with my community, SMB Nation. And then I immediately said, well, I want to share it with the Tech Tuesday audience here at Northwest Digital News. So I would vote no. Now, I talk out of both sides of my mouth because I'm guilty of leading with tech and forgetting about water. In fact, I'm going to take a sip of water. Mike, how you doing? Why don't you pick it up from there? What's going on?
Well, Harry, Kevin, thank you for having me today and getting this word out. I think it's pretty important because, you know, I've been in the tech business for 40 years, and whenever we talk about disasters, we're thinking about backups and recovering and things like that. And I learned a long time ago, having gone through some disasters in my community, that if your people aren't around or if they're not available, and if they're taking care of their families, you're not going to have them when you need them to get to work and be able to help the people that, you know, you've got a mission to help. So a lot of this is really saying, let's get back down and making sure that the workforce members are well enough protected. And that takes some work. It takes some effort to build a kit and have enough food and water at your house, because if that doesn't happen, then if you're a business owner, you're going to find out that your employees have all gone to relatives' homes 300, 400, 500 miles away, and they aren't going to be there for you when you need them.
Interesting. So let's kind of scroll down and have a little dialogue. So you have the family business communications plan, and Mike, as I was looking this over and chatting with you, again, you got my focus back to the fact that this is a comprehensive disaster checklist, not just backup batteries for the server or the laptop or the data. So we have the family and business communications plan, write down critical cell numbers. I like that one because, you know, I'm so used to on my Android, my stars, right? I just click the star to dial. I haven't committed to memory my two boys' phone number.
Well, and then the other thing too, Harry, is that if you can't reach them and they can't reach you, it's pretty simple just to agree on some out of area relative that you're all going to call when you get to some place and say, hey, I'm okay, you know, just letting you know. And they go, well, you know, your dad called twice looking to see if you'd reached out to us yet. That's what happens when you lose communication in your own community. And it's frustrating for you because you can't call out, and then your relatives are freaking out that they can't reach you.
Yeah, and this seems especially timely with just some weather events we've had. We're in the year 2020 that will go down in infamy all on its own, but you know, we're having some weather events. So this is a real timely contribution. We're talking water, of course. We're talking food. Okay, utilities. So let's talk about that, Mike.
Well, first of all, they're kind of like your stomach. You don't really think about them until they hurt. So your power's on, your water's on. If you heat by gas, then your gas source is going to be on. But what happens when there's a power outage, or if you have to evacuate, you're going to need to turn off the gas to your house. What they found in Superstorm Sandy in some communities in New Jersey, people had not turned the gas off, and literally entire neighborhoods burned to the ground. So now the gas companies are coming in and shutting everything off at the main, like at the main pipe level. And then when you get home, you can't just go light it. You have to have everything checked. You've got to think this stuff through. And if you're dependent on power and you live in an area where you can justify the expense based on power outages, or if your business is dependent on it, you need a generator. And most people that buy generators don't even have enough gas to run them for a day.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about tech, and Mike, do you think that the reason that so many of these things are overlooked is that technology is involved in so many aspects of our life that we take many of these things for granted? We look at them as just being automatic, nothing to worry about, from everything you've already visited about to cash, automobiles, cell phones, etc. and we just kind of write off any plan B, so to speak, for any of these things because we just assume they're going to be taken care of every day.
Well, Kevin, that's a good point, but I'll also tell you that I went through a disaster long before I got into the tech world, which was over 40 years ago, since I've been in the tech business. And even before then, people weren't prepared. And what it really gets down to is that we're just so busy with our lives and we kind of think it's never going to happen to us. And the one thing I've learned doing disaster planning is that you don't base your planning on the likelihood of something happening, you base it on the impact of something happening. So in Florida, they had not seen a hurricane in the state of Florida for 11 years until about 3 years ago, but they still kept planning for it. And the reason they kept planning for it was everybody knew from historical experience that the impact would be so high. So when that hurricane came up through Florida about 3 years ago, the first one in 11 years, the companies that were prepared for it and the people that were prepared for it did a whole lot better than those that got in their car without food and water and half a tank of gas and had no idea where they were going.
Mm-hmm.
All
Makes
right.
perfect sense.
Now we're cruising by computers. We had mobile phones on the screen. We're cruising by computers. Good point on the generator. And by the way, Mike, I've taken that to heart. I've used some time recently to clean my generator. The carburetors get kind of gunky because the gas gets left in the tank and the vapor water. I won't bore you, but I'm a weekend warrior at that level, cleaning a carburetor.
So Harry, I want to tell you a quick story about Superstorm Sandy when it came up the East Coast. I was in upstate New York, and I've got a house there, and we had a generator, and I only had five 5-gallon gas cans, 5 of them, and they were full. And I'm doing the math, thinking if this storm really gets that bad, and we're going to be down for like a week, that generator burns 7 gallons a day in gas.
They do.
Well, I did the math and I didn't have 35 gallons of gasoline. So I got in the car and I drove down to Lowe's. And Lowe's had just been on television announcing that they got a tractor trailer load of generators. So when I got to Lowe's, the parking lot was full. I walked in the store, there were people lined up with those great big carts, not the little shopping cart, but that flatbed cart with a generator on it. And they're all lined up to the counter. And I went back to the gas can section and I looked and it was empty, but I got down on my hands and knees and I looked across and I could see 2 5-gallon gas cans that had kind of been pushed through to the other side. So technically they were on the aisle going the other direction. So I crawled under there, grabbed them, and I went up and stood in line. And I was asking the people around me, do you know how much gasoline that generator you're buying is going to burn in just one day? And they go, no. I said, it says right here on the box, 7 gallons a day. I said, how many gallons of gas do you have at home for your lawnmower? First guy says, well, I think I got a gallon or 2, in that little can in my garage. And somebody else says, I only have a 5-gallon thing. I didn't know it burned 7 gallons a day. I need to get one of those gas cans. Well, there weren't any. Turns out the manager had to come over and get me away from the crowd because everybody was trying to rip the gas cans out of my hand. And I went home, filled them up on the way home. So I had my 35 gallons of gas for my generator. And all these poor people had bought generators, never thinking through how much gasoline they were going to burn. Planning is just critical if you're going to survive a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Computers, backup, power, laptop, kind of goes without saying. Let's talk maybe these last couple items: evacuation, hand crank radio, batteries, and flashlights. So let's talk about evacuation plans. What's going on, Mike?
Well, it depends on where you are. And every community has some sort of evacuation plan. They have to have a plan by law, federal law. Every community has to have planning done. And you'll see these signs if you're on a coast that says evacuation route or hurricane evacuation route and those things. But you have to be prepared to know where to go. And also, when you think about this, I've done disaster planning for organizations on the East Coast, like on Long Island. And when I was talking to the executives of one of the businesses, I said, how long before you think you're going to evacuate? And he says, well, probably 6 to 12 hours before a hurricane would hit. I go, no. I said, it's going to be like 24 to 36 or even 48 hours. They're going to make the folks on the coast and on those barrier islands and things get out early. And he had never thought that through. And that became a big issue with their business continuity planning, was figuring out that they were going to lose employees. And it happened. Soon after we did the plan for them, a hurricane came up the East Coast, and a lot of their employees got evacuated 48 hours before it hit. And that was a lot longer than they thought they were going to be down. So again, preparation is critical if you're going to keep your business going.
And that significant lead time cuts down any amount of time you might have thought of as far as packing and that sort of thing, because you might actually know about the storm sometimes getting very close to that evacuation time frame, and suddenly you got to leave, and it's like leaving a house that's on fire. You grab what you can and head out the door, and then you find yourself wherever you had planned on going and not really having the resources and things that you have. There's something else that you mentioned in the beginning here, Mike, that I want to go back to, and it turned on the light bulb for some training that I had in the military. And you talk about having places that you either meet or connect with family. In the Army, we called that a rally point. And very frequently when you're deployed or on mission anywhere, several times a day, you're moving from A to B, but along that journey, several times, places are identified as rally points. So if something happened or something went wrong, everybody would reconvene on that given point, and at least you knew where everybody was. And I think about that sort of thing, and obviously being in the military is a more extreme example because the likelihood of something going wrong is significantly higher. However, you talked about that the focus shouldn't be on what's the likelihood of it happening, but what's the impact if it does. And people should really be thinking this through a lot more than they are.
Right. And, you've got so many different ways to look at it, Kevin. One is, if you can't get home, does everybody in your family know where to go? The rally point is the place you go if you can't be at the place that you're supposed to get to. So if you have to evacuate, or if you're on the way home and there are fire trucks blocking the street, or yellow crime tape across the street, or something like that, where do you go? And you have to think that through too. So when we've worked with businesses, we've picked malls and other places because they had big food courts that were indoors. Now with COVID, those malls aren't open in many cases. So these are the things to think about. And you need to be far enough away that you're not going to be impacted by that disaster, but you need to be close enough that it's easy to get to, and you need to think about things like bathrooms and food and water and that kind of stuff. One of our clients had a company behind them where the owners flew in and out by helicopter in the morning and in the afternoon. And they had painted signs. They had put department names on the back fence of their facility, which were the rally points. And I stood there scratching my head one day right after I'd gotten there, and they said, what are you thinking about? I said, well, what if the helicopter crashes? Where are your departments going to go? And they looked at me, and they went out and had a maintenance guy take all the signs down and put the signs on a different fence, because they were seeing that helicopter going in and out every day. And I was looking at that as like, that's going to be your disaster. That's your highest risk compared to a flood or a hurricane or something. So they hadn't thought through their rally point.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, gentlemen, why don't we end on don't panic? And Mike, we're going to get you back because you have other published works in this area. So we want to kind of continue this dialogue, if you don't mind. But let's talk don't panic. We'll end on that. What are your thoughts, Mike?
So, Harry, I was a firefighter. I was a volunteer firefighter. Kevin was in the military. And what you learn is that everybody panics, but the sooner you get past your panic, the higher your likelihood of survival is going to be. So, when you're in the military, you can't say you're not going to panic when the bullets are flying over your head. When you're a firefighter and you pull up to that burning building and somebody yells, there's a person inside, there's going to be a level of panic. But the more you're trained, the more you practice, and the more confident you are that you're prepared for this, then you're not going to panic. And that's the point when it comes to planning. The more you plan, the less you will panic. The less you panic, the greater your chance of survival.
Kevin, final thoughts on that?
Well, all the habits that come from that planning and the rehearsals and, practicing, they say all the time that practice makes perfect, and those things will kick in. The intuition of what are the proper things to do when you've rehearsed them enough times, they'll kick in even when your brain is freaking out. And it's really important that you do that kind of stuff, because you will have a much more responsible response to, any kind of a situation. And disaster, if it's going to bring out panic and emotions in people, nothing like a disaster to do exactly that. Mike, any closing thoughts?
No, just prepare, go through the checklist, check off all the boxes, and you will feel a lot better that you're going to survive and you're going to be successful. If it's a business where your employees are going to be able to get back to work and keep your business going sooner than later after something happens.
100% agreed. Well, thanks everyone for joining us here on the broadcast. Kevin Hunter with Harry Brelsford on Tech Tuesday. Mike Semel has been our special guest. Thanks everyone for joining us. Till next time, take care.